This is one of the weirdest lives ever. I have never had this much technology problems. My sound keeps going off. My face keeps freezing. I have changed where I'm not walking. I'm just going to sit today, and I'm hoping that you all can hear. So I hope this is it. I have some AirPods in my bag, and I just turned off the Bluetooth. So I'm hoping that that was the sound issue that the Bluetooth was trying to pick up, and it wasn't working. So thank you for being here. Those of you who are joining, this is a really weird and obviously very important live because there have been so many technology issues today. So I'm Ann Ferguson, and I do a live walk and talk every morning, except today I am not walking. I am just going to sit my butt down, and we are going to talk anyway. Okay? I'm not touching anything. I'm not walking. I'm not moving. Right here. Okay? So what I want you to know when things like this happen, what I know, there's only one God. He is intimately invested in our good, not just mine, but yours. And the things that you've been praying for, and the things that you need to know and hear, and the support you need, He's got this. And then every once in a while, when it's going to be kind of a big thing, there's like, this bully. If there's only one God and the law of opposition exists, then there's only one enemy. The enemy's not happy right now because he's been messing with me, but it turns out I am a fighter, and I will get things done that I need to. So I have all the equipment I need. I'm sitting right here, and guys, listen up because something big's going to happen. All right. 15 years ago, I found there's a book called In the Meantime that the Lord literally led me to. I was on my way to a dance lesson, dropping my girls off, and usually I'd sit inside the studio. I worked at the studio, so I'd usually sit and wait if I wasn't teaching. And this time the Lord said, no, go to a bookstore. There was one down the street, so I went, okay. I just felt really strongly, like it's not a voice. It's like I felt really compelled to go to a bookstore. So I did. And when I walked in, I had no idea what I was looking for, right? So I went and I drove to this bookstore. I walked in, I had no idea what I was even looking for. Like there wasn't I need to go look on a book of child rearing or parenting or a novel or anything. I had no idea. I walked in, I kind of looked around, and then I felt my heart kind of tugging at me, right? And so I just kept walking, and I walked kind of to the back of the store, and then it was like a turn. It was also like my body. I mean, I was in charge of it, but it was kind of on autopilot. And I stood in front of this shelf, and I just said, what am I supposed to be looking at? And so I scanned the shelf, and there was a book. It was called In the Meantime. And I took it out, and I looked, and I went, okay. So that book really changed my whole perspective on relationships, on my upbringing, on the way I show up in relationships, the way I was making excuses for people, the places that I needed to take responsibility for myself and my actions. It is one of the best books ever. If it's called In the Meantime, and that is, there's a subtitle, Finding Yourself and the Love You Want. That was so dang important for me because I felt like I'd lost myself. And so for me to find myself again was huge. So there's a workbook companion to In the Meantime. It's on my resources page. But there's a workbook, companion workbook, called Living Through the Meantime that is on my page. All of the books that have had major impact on my life are there. In that book, there is a list of loving behaviors that I found 15 years ago. So what we've been doing the last several days is talking about each one of those. What is actual loving behavior and what is not? And how to work within a relationship so that you are responsible for your part and doing what you need to do. Now, this loving behavior list is not for you to tell other people why they're not doing it right and why they're not loving. Guys, that's not loving. So step one is for you to be really clear about what you would love. Step two is for you to tell the truth about what you would love. Like, this is actually what I would love. It's not taking away from anybody. It's just what you would love. We have a whole video on that. The next one is ask for exactly what you want. Like, just ask. Ask the universe. Ask yourself, hey, could you provide this for me? Ask other people. Asking, because if you ask, you receive. There's a principle in that. The next thing is to tell the truth about what you expect from others. Yesterday we did something about others' expectations of you, right? Yeah. Okay, today we're talking about telling the truth about if you can keep any commitments that you've made, right? I'm going to take out my list. I think I have it printed in my bag. Let's see if I still have it, because I had it yesterday. Is there a list? There is. Look, I printed a list for myself. All right, here we go. Loving behavior reference. That's what it's called. Know what you want. Ask for exactly what you want. Tell the absolute truth about what you want. Clearly let others involved know your expectations. Ask for clarity about what's expected of you. And here's today. Tell the absolute truth about your ability to live up to the expectations of others. Truth. Tell the truth. We're going to talk about lying for a minute. We have all been told, honesty is the best policy. You shouldn't lie. Don't lie to me. All of those things, right? Guys, as I was a young mom, I taught my children to lie to me. As I got older, I went, oh, I'm teaching them to lie. Let me show you what this looks like. Ready? Okay, if anybody has done this before, I need a me too moment. Okay, so I know I'm not the only one. I will see something that one of the kids had done. Maybe they made a huge mess somewhere, right? I know which one. I know which one of the kids. There's 5. I knew which one had done the thing. There was evidence usually on their shirt or something like that. So what I used to do is bring them to the mess and say, did you do this? Did you do this? Okay. Now, if I'm going to challenge somebody like that and they can hear that they're going to get in trouble if they admit anything, what is the natural response if you are threatened? To protect yourself. No, I didn't do it. Okay, that is a lie. That is an absolute lie. Don't you dare lie to me. You're going to get more in trouble if you lie. Did you do this? Did you do that? Okay, you hear the voice? I did that voice. I did those words. Let me tell you what I learned how to do. Hey, come here. Did you see that? So you did that, so let's clean it up. What do we need to do? So instead of making them confess and learning just by my anger towards them that it was dangerous for them to confess, they were already in trouble. Instead of doing that to them, I made them feel safe to accept responsibility for what they did. Interesting concept, right? What did you do? Nope. Okay, so I noticed, this is what you say, I noticed that there's a huge mess in here, and I would love for you to come clean it up. Do you need some help? I can give you the dustpan, you can do the vacuum, what do you need to clean this up? Okay, that's just saying, I see you, I know it, and we're going to take responsibility. It's the same thing that God does. Think about that for a minute. We kind of feel something in our heart, and he goes, yeah, we kind of made a mess, right? How about we clean you up? That is the loving God that I experience. So, there's another thing that happens and the why we're told to lie. When you are so afraid of the punishment, you will do everything you can not to. Or if you're overly controlled, if your voice isn't heard, then there's this adage, right? It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. That tells us that what we're supposed to do is secretly going about doing things, kind of lie about it, and then if we get caught, we say, yeah, it was me. I know a lot of people that live by that. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, and I'll ask forgiveness later. You know, it'll be a little bit, you'll be upset with me, but it'll be okay. That is so incredibly disrespectful, right? Why don't we ask? I believe part of it is because we believe we're being controlled and that we don't have any choices. That might have been true as a child. As an adult, you actually have choices and you have the ability to navigate your own feelings. Yeah, emotional regulation. If you are super upset because the kid, I don't know, broke a bottle of blackberry syrup 5 minutes before we had to go to church, that was upsetting. Was it okay for me to be upset at that child? Absolutely. Emotional regulation is what is needed, not what in the world did you do? Did you do this? What were you thinking? It's like, oh, shoot, that's scary. Come on, come here. Okay. I would love you to sit right there because I'm going to clean up the glass so that nobody else gets here. And going in your own head and going, we're going to be late for church. We're going to be late. We're going to walk in late again. What does that mean to me? Does that mean that I am not 100% a perfect individual and everybody's going to find out? That is what it means. And it also means that you are not doing what a good mom looks like, which is getting all the kids to church on time, but you're actually being a good mom because you're hanging out with your kids, right? All right. The other reason why we lie is because we believe that we are responsible for someone else's emotional state. So when somebody asks a question and we're not sure if it's going to make them feel sad or bad, we lie, right? If you were responsible for your parents' well-being emotional state, then you learn to lie. Because you didn't want them to be sad. You don't want them to be upset. You don't want them to be disappointed. If you had like spidey sense where you were like always, okay, it doesn't have to be parents. I did this with an ex-husband. Okay? Spidey sense. Making sure that nothing that you do is causing any problem with anybody else. It's called eggshell walking, right? My dad was super depressed. My ex-husband, I always had to be on guard and making sure that nothing that I was doing was something that was going to cause issue or problem. If that was your past, you have been taught to lie. You have been taught to be covert, do what you need to do. You have been taught to assume other people's expectations and meet them at the best way you can to prove that you are valid and that you're a good person. So let's look at what this loving behavior thing is again. The one that we're working on today is tell the absolute truth about your ability to live up to the expectations of others. It's like already a guilt fest. I really don't like disappointing people. I really don't like it. When I acknowledge that somebody has expectations of me, sometimes that's rough, right? Because I panic that I'm not going to do it right and I'm not going to make it in the way that they want me to. Why? Because so many times I was told how I screwed up, how I made people feel bad, how I made them mad, how I disappointed them and everything was my fault. Over and over and over. It still happens in my family at times. It's my fault. So, hearing somebody's expectations, why I abhor lies so much because they're supposed to keep the peace. We were taught to lie. Whether it be the way that our parents caught us when we did something wrong and said, did you do this? And we lied. Or whether it be the tiptoeing around and making sure that everybody's okay. And they said, okay, here's the biggest lie. Ready? Are you okay? I'm fine. How many of you go, I'm fine, and you don't actually tell the truth all the freaking time? I would love to change the world. I would love to change the world into, I'm not okay today. Thanks for asking. I'll figure this out. I appreciate you. Right? Yeah. Okay, another lie. I have found that when I have the right to feel anything, and somebody asks me to do something, and I've entered into an agreement, and then I can't do it, my first response is shame, and then panic, and then worry, and then wanting to hide, and dread of when they find out. Anybody else? Now, I've gotten past some of that, but that is my go-to because of my programming. You know what that is? I'll tell you what that is. It's called emotional immaturity. I am owning and telling the truth that there are places in me that are emotionally immature. I am not blaming. I am not victimized. I am aware. Just aware. There are places in me that are absolutely emotionally mature. So let's do this expectations of others, right? We have an agreement. There's something that I've said that I'm going to get done, and then I can't do it for some reason. The next thing is to be very loving towards the person that you have said you would do something. Why? Because if you do, they have the ability to shift and to move and not anticipate, and their disappointment is actually mitigated in a way. For you to say in enough time, hey, I am realizing that I overcommitted. I would love to know what you want me to do, but I can't do this. Can we move it to another day? Can I find somebody else to help you? What would you love from me? I'm not able to do this right now. If we have that, that's great. All right, next thing. You are not response-able, meaning you cannot respond to anybody else's emotions. So if you say, and you're honest, I can't. This was too much. I took on too much, or there's a thing that got in the way. Or I said yes to something and I don't actually know how to do it, so it's taking me a long time to get there. If they get upset, mad, disappointed, angry, hurt, martyred, guilting you, you did not do anything wrong. Now I'm going to say this again. When you come to someone and say, I can't meet your expectation, and they freak out on you, you did not do anything wrong. The most loving behavior you can do is to tell people when you cannot meet the expectations they have of you. So what does that mean? That means you've got to be able to know yourself. You have to know what it feels like when you're too stressed and not make yourself wrong for being stressed. You have to know what it feels like when you forgot and that put you behind and that made it not possible. And you have to be able to say, it's okay that I forgot. It's even okay that I feel guilty about this. It's even okay that I feel really bad that I let somebody down, and then you reach out anyway. You're never wrong. And I know that feels really weird because we've been taught good and bad behavior. You're never wrong in what you feel. So if you get really clear about what you feel, then you can perform, you can do correct behavior. If you're always looking for outside validation, to say that you're good. You're going to overcommit. You're going to try to meet people's expectations when it's completely unrealistic. We talked yesterday about other people's expectations of you. Do you have anybody who has unrealistic expectations of you? I know some people. When you haven't had the experience that somebody else has had, you can anticipate or expect that they're going to do things. But because you've never been there, you don't know. For instance, my sweet husband, he's such a good provider. He bought cars for my girls as they were in college. It was really, really important that they have transportation. They didn't have money or funds put together, but they needed the transportation. So he got the loans, and he told them, I will pay for these for a year. That was the expectation. And we all thought, oh, that's going to be great. Okay, thank you for that. That's extremely generous, so generous. And then what happened was these girls, one had a scholarship, and the study involved and the grades involved in keeping that scholarship so that she could go to school was huge. And she had a full-time job. And her ability to meet her basic needs were taken up with that full-time job. We weren't paying her housing, we weren't paying her food, her books, all of the things that she had to pay for just to live. Her paycheck was doing that. And the expectation was still, it's been a year. You need to start paying this. And you're kind of going back on your promise to me if you don't pay it. It was an unrealistic expectation because my husband had not had the experience of being at college and holding a scholarship and working full time. So his expectations were unrealistic. So in that case, how scary is that, the conversation? I feel so bad because he's been so generous and I can't make it work. All of the bully telling you that you're a failure, that can show up. The reality is, it's not a realistic expectation to have a scholarship, keep the grades high enough to keep it, work a full-time job, by the way, plan a wedding, and still be able to make a $300 car payment. It wasn't possible. So if you're feeling really, really, really tight, you're feeling really scared, you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm never going to make this, it might be an expectation that you need to have a conversation around. I understand what you want me to do. I also have come to understand it's not within my ability. My life isn't such that I can do this. Okay, one more thing before we leave. In my church culture, there is a thing that when they need a volunteer, they will call somebody in and they say, hey, we would love for you to accept this volunteer position. Are you willing? There's a cultural thing that says you're supposed to say yes right now or you're not faithful. That is a problem. So one of the things that I do in that situation, and it doesn't have to be church, there was a homeschool situation where I was asked to be the lead of a class that I didn't know anything about, and I'd never been in this actual situation before. And somebody said, will you do this? Everybody reserve the right to pause. If somebody asks you if you would be willing to do something, have the moment of pause. For me in this situation, I said, with a homeschool, I said, can I take a minute? I would like to get back to you later on this week, but I need to pray. I need to find out if this is a really good thing for me or not. She looked like, what are you talking about? I mean, we ask and then you do. It's a cultural thing. I've done that at the church too. Recently, about 6 months ago, that was the case. I was asked to work within the children's youth program. And I said, I need to think about this. Something isn't sitting right. That totally took the person who was asking me back, like you're not supposed to do that. But I took the moment. And I went home, and I realized it's not a good place for me to be. Why? because I was traveling every other weekend, and those children needed somebody who was there all the time for that consistency. The person who asked me didn't know my travel schedule. They didn't know that that's what was happening in the commitments that I'd made there, right? Because sometimes you have commitments to something, and then somebody else wants you to commit, and you're like, what do I do, right? So what happens when another person has unreasonable expectations and won't accept anything other than you agreeing with them, even though you don't really agree? This is where the honesty happens. I understand that this is an expectation that you have of me, and I am telling you it's not possible. I don't agree with you, and I can't meet that. You can be very mad, you cannot believe me, you can try to guilt and shame me, but the truth is, it's not possible for me to do. So if you're upset, disappointed, angry, frustrated, blaming me, shaming me, that's all on you. It's actually got nothing to do with me. That's why this is such loving behavior. The behavior that is loving, listen up, everybody. It's for you. Every single one of these steps is you finding out how to love you. See, we've been told that if we do what other people want us to do, we're showing that we love them. This comes back to a God thing. If we believe that we have to do so that God will bless us, and that we can expect those blessings because we've done all the things, that's a problem. Because when we do and we do and we do, we expect God to bless us, and He doesn't. What's up with that? Well, it's in the doing. That's why we create our day the way we do. If we say, this is what I would love and feels the most loving to me and those around me, what is my next right step, Lord? Then you get to work with Him. But if you're busy doing and doing and doing, and those aren't the things that He wanted you to do, the blessings can't come because you're not doing it with Him. You're just doing. So, expectations of others is, I've asked you to do something, be obedient to me. Just because they've asked doesn't mean agreement, guys. When you've had that conversation and they don't accept your limitations, that's when you just do what you need to do for the most loving way possible, and they get to experience the repercussions of not receiving clear communication. So we're going to go through this list again. I'm going to tell you what tomorrow's talk is on. All right, ready? First thing, get very clear about what you would love. Don't judge yourself when you go, what would I love? What would I love today? Right? So, first thing, you get to have preferences. You get to have desires. You get to have wants. You get to have needs. All of those things are very loving. Acknowledging what those are, very loving to you. Second, ask for what you want. It's so loving to say, hey, Anne, what I would really love today is, how are we going to do this? I talk to myself all the time. Hey, God, this is what I would love. What do I need to do to participate in that with you so you can help me? Right? The problem is we cannot love God if we don't let ourselves be loved by Him. Because then He's the big bad guy. We can love, this is really important, there are toxic things. When somebody is very toxic and they do things that are hurtful to you, and they say, it's because I love you, we get programmed that hurtful behavior equals love. You have to be willing to be loved by Him and receive how good that feels, not how shameful it feels. Shame is not love. Accusation is not love. Support, being seen, being heard. You must allow yourself to be seen and heard. So, this is what I'm talking about. You have to see yourself, give yourself permission to be seen, and give what you see about yourself to God and let Him love you. To me, that is loving God with all of my heart. Not holding my heart back because I'm afraid He's not going to like what I say. right? My mind, giving him my perspective. We absolutely must love ourselves. And here's the thing. This is the one I want you guys to know more than anything. If you struggle with allowing God to love you, this is where I got this. I was in prayer. And it was one of those not really deep prayers. It was like the check the box prayer, dear Heavenly Father, please help me with, thank you so much for, and it wasn't real. And a thought came into my mind, and it was almost simultaneously that I caught it and I kind of said it in my prayer and didn't realize what I'd said. And then I went, wait a minute, what? And then I heard it again. The thought came again. Ready? If you have a hard time loving God first, or more, letting God love you first, teach me, just teach me, to love myself as much as you love me. I will tell you that when that partnership happens and you start to learn to love yourself, you can love God with all of your heart, with all of your might, with all of your mind. When you find you're standing with him because you're willing to be loved by him and receive how good it feels to be seen, heard, and known by God, all of this other loving behavior flows. Ask for exactly what you want from God. Tell the absolute truth about what you want. Ask for clarity about what's expected of you. That's very loving of me to go, hey, I want to be clear so that I know what the expectations are. Let others involved know exactly what you expect of them so that you don't get disappointed. Do you see how that's loving for you? Okay, the next one, tell the absolute truth about your ability to live up to the expectations of others. That's the one that we're on. Tomorrow, we are going to go into renegotiate any agreements you have made if you find you're unable to keep that agreement. So the first step is being absolutely, tell the truth to yourself about your ability to live up to the expectations. Tell yourself, hey self, you really burned out. Hey Anne, I know that you want to show up for everybody on these walk and talks, but you're not feeling okay today. People are expecting you to be there. That's true. But today, let's get real. You're not okay. I had to do that a couple times, right? I had to get very clear about what others expected of me. That is your goal today. Who has expectations of you today? Look at them. Tell the truth. We're going to flip this one last time. What expectations do you have of yourself today that are unrealistic? Tell the absolute truth to yourself about yourself. What expectations are unrealistic for you today? That one I have to do on a regular basis. Why? Because I have ADD. And in ADD, a thought comes into my head, and that's the most important thought that ever was, and that's the one I say I'm going to do. And then another thought comes, and that's the most important thought that it could ever be. And I assume that I can do so much more than I can possibly ever do. And there are times when I am not realistic with myself about that, and I get into trouble. And then I go to bed feeling I'm not enough. I've let people down. I'm a fraud. Everybody's going to know it. It's about unrealistic expectations of ourselves. So, grace today. Make a list. All the expectations you have of yourself. Make a list. All the expectations you are aware that others have of you. Tell the truth. Because tomorrow, we're going to learn how to renegotiate. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for you. All right, friends, thanks for sticking around on this crazy walk and talk. I win. We got it done. Everybody have a really, really beautiful, wonderful day. If you have any more comments about what I said today, if you have any questions, any things you want to chew up, please just comment. I would love to comment back. I would love to have a conversation with you. I would also love for you to be in the Igniting Your Belief program. It is fascinating how it unravels all of the misconceptions, learning, false traditions that we have, and puts it into clarity. If you feel like you need some clarity so that you know how to operate without the anxiety of not knowing or the beating yourself up all the time, come to the Igniting Your Belief in you. Ignite that belief. Ignite that belief with you and God. Ignite that belief in your ability to be with others or others with you. Ignite your belief. I would love to see you there. Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.